Hey, Klara, Adalena here. When is it being needy and when is it being vulnerable? Our theme for today at the Love for Life Academy, bring your awesomeness to dating. Give me a moment to start this thing up. I've been looking at all those magicians yesterday night, all those magicians with those card tricks and stuff and doing things that you know is impossible, making coins disappear and appear somewhere else. And sometimes I feel like that, you're doing one thing and doing another thing and making it seem like you're just here and you're doing something else. And the question, of course, is falling in love. Is that actually a magician's trick? I'm showing you someone who isn't there and make you fall in love with that being. And then you discover, oh, who is that woman? Or is falling in love showing you the real me? And that is so intriguing when all the tricks fall away and it's just me and it's real. And is that what makes you fall in love? That's a big question. One of my favorite songs, love songs, ta-da-da-da, Klara's favorite love song. You all know it. The Rose, Bette Midler. We were just playing and listening to it this morning. Some say love, it is a river that drowns the tender reed. Some say love, it is a razor that leaves your soul to bleed. Some say love, it is a hunger and endless aching need. But I say love, it is a flower, and you its only seed. This tells to me about that, that view, that approach, that stance. Love is a flower. What is more pure, more simple than a flower? I just celebrated my birthday and taking a new leap of faith in my business 2 years ago, got me where I am now. I celebrated over the weekend with friends, and I was so happy that I got flowers from almost everybody. What is more beautiful than a flower? What makes you fall in love more than a flower? We don't need all those plastic built stuff, right? We want the purity of a flower. So in love, what really creates that love, that deeper connection, that thing beyond the stir of the moment, is when we get real like a flower, when we can be vulnerable, when we can be ourselves. But when I speak about that, invariably the question comes up, when is it needy and when is it vulnerable? I was realizing that actually so often it's the people who control a lot who ask this question. Well, that's an interesting thing. It's the people who are scared of being vulnerable who ask that. Because how does it work? Let's say, a topic that I often see, a woman wants children, wants deeper connection. And the man is like, oops, I don't think I was quite there yet. Then what is it? When I say, I want the kids, is that being vulnerable or is it being controlling or is it being needy? Well, as always, the answer is not on the surface. The answer is what is really going on here. And if I am feeling very vulnerable around this, I want kids, I need a man, shit, it's the only thing in my life I have no control over. Oh, if that's my feeling, and then I try to kind of bring that like, okay, here you are, what do you want? Now that's both being controlling and being needy. I'll break the news to you. Why? Because I'm not sharing my feelings. That's the clue to it all. It's not in the content. You can say anything. You can want anything without being needy, without being controlling. It's not about the content. We have to separate those two. It's not about the content. Whether it's I want sex, or whether it's I want kids, or whether I want a ring on my finger, or whether it's I want to go to Brussels for the weekend. The content isn't what makes it needy or what makes it controlling. Then what is it? What does make it needy or be controlling? It is the place where you come from, and it is how you are with your own longing, with your own vulnerability around that. Because that is vulnerable, right? To want something and not to know if you can get it. That is vulnerable. People in Africa feel it all the time. I want food. I don't know if I can get it. That's vulnerable. It used to be, interestingly enough, a path to spirituality. Here in the West, one of our Western paths, especially women would practice it very severely, very strongly. Have no besittingen, what's that in English? Possessions. Have no possessions. You never know where the food will come from for that day. You just don't know. You have no money. You never know whether you will have shoes this winter. That's very vulnerable. Paradox is that when you allow that vulnerability, it creates an inner power that touches people to the heart, and you will never be without shoes, without food, without love. That's the journey. And interestingly enough, in a way, that's the journey that we are making nowadays in our love relationships. Because we are letting go of the possession, I own you, you owe me love or care or being with me, or we are stepping into that place of it's the journey. It's the journey of being vulnerable and not knowing. And in that journey, I grow. And in that journey, you grow. And in that journey, we grow as a couple. And this is so key to that process, that we give up that idea of possession. When I say I want kids, you have to give them kids, or otherwise I would feel horrible. That's a form of possession. That's a form of control. We're giving up all of that. Give it to the wind. It doesn't mean we have no commitments to each other. But the commitment is to stay with the process. That's a very different commitment. It's on a different level. And that I have given from my free choice. That is a commitment I want to give. And I will see how that works out. Right? Isn't it lovely? It makes it so exciting and so beautiful and such a vehicle for growth. So what happens is that we really step into that paradigm that relationships are there for our growth, are there for ourselves, for the community to grow. And it begins with really starting to say like, okay, and if I want this, whether it's eggs for breakfast or children or lighting the fire, you know, when I want this and I say that I want it, it will still be okay if I don't get it. Whew, that's not an easy one. I can tell you, and I can tell you there's so many times I still go off. I say it and now I want it. I say it and now I'll do everything to make it happen. I know that energy very well. It's both my gift and my curse, as so many things. But what is so important is that we start. 1 second. Look at that, my gift and my curse, I was saying. Here I get so many gifts. What did I receive? No, I'm not going to open it up now. But I remember I ordered this. This is silk handkerchiefs. They feel so delicious on your skin and they keep you really warm under other gloves. And what was the other thing I ordered? Ah, yeah. A linen duvet cover. You can tell the kind of thing I like, right? What I want. So it's a blessing when we can just order something from the post and then it comes. And in relationships, it doesn't work that easy. It's not like we order it from the post and it comes, but we can say what we want. And if the other wants to give it to us, something magical happens that didn't happen between the postman and me, right? Something magical happens of really giving and receiving, and the joy of somebody wanting to give to me what I truly want, the joy of giving something that the other truly wants. Those create deep bonding and connection. But also when, I want something and the other is like, Klara, right now you want the kids. I don't know if I'm there. Right now you want eggs for breakfast. Well, I'm not ready to go to the kitchen. I just want to stay here next to you. That can also happen. And then it's about daring to meet that, daring to meet those feelings. Maybe I feel utterly disappointment. I so wanted the eggs. I so wanted you to bring them to me. Maybe I just laugh like, wow, actually, I want that even more, just to be with you and you really wanting me. We don't know. That's life, that's adventure, and that's what keeps a relationship alive. So what is the difference between vulnerable and needy? It is exactly that, not fearing those emotions, not being like, I don't want you to do that because then I will feel that and I don't like that feeling. It's about being willing to feel everything. And when it's there, to share that, to express it. When it's like, if you do that, mommy will be sad, that's controlling and needy. If you are like, I really want that to happen, otherwise my life will just fall to pieces, that's needy. But if it's like, wow, I really want this with everything that I have, and if I don't get it, I'll still be okay. There's no neediness in there. So it's very much this okayness with whatever happens, which makes a big, big difference. The okayness with whatever happens. And we can only feel that okayness if we are truly okay with ourselves. I have enough sheets on my bed, right? So that's why it's fun to have one of high quality. I remember when I was a teenager, my mother, I had this one sheet and I would say to my mom, whenever I get that sheet, it feels so nice. And she was like, I see a question coming up. We'll go there in a moment, Anita, thank you. And she went with me to the bed and said, oh, wow, the sheet that you like so much, it's actually a linen one, and all the others are cotton. And since then, it was one of my dreams to be able to buy linen sheets, and here I am. But it's not needy because, I'll be okay anyhow. Needy, Anita says, is when needs haven't been met. No. It's not how I would use the word, let's say it that way. Anita, maybe for you that is. There is an unmet need, but also not giving up. Important to be able to be needy. Well, I don't know exactly where you're going there. It can be important to have a need and not give it up. But what usually happens when, if I can say, I want this need met, I'm not giving it up, and yet I'm okay with it not being fulfilled, then there is space for the other to be. But if it's like, this need is not being met and I'm not going to give up until it's met, then there is no space for the other. Then the only thing that the other can do is fit into my world. And that's kind of like a recipe for separation further down the line. So that's why I make that distinction. Now, if we are truly hungry and we need to eat or we will die, that's of course another thing, right? That's not what I'm talking about here. But in the world that we live in and the relationships that we are talking about, there is not that kind of need until one of us is really run over by a car and needs to go to the hospital. And then a whole other thing kicks in, of course. So thank you for Anita for bringing us that too, of course. And in the end, if you're with a man and you truly want children and he truly doesn't meet you there, then what we have to say is, well, thank you so much, but you're not my one, right? And then we need to take that responsibility and say, if I can't hear and I really want it, I need to go somewhere else or find another solution or whatever. So we stay ourselves responsible for getting what we need. And then it's not neediness, but then it can be very vulnerable. And vulnerability creates connection. To end with Bette Midler, she's my hero for today and for so often. Just remember, in the winter, far beneath the bitter snows, lies the seed that with the sun's love, in the spring becomes the rose. It's beneath our bitterness. It's beneath our coldness. It's beneath our winter. That love, the seed for love, is ready to grow. And the seed is as vulnerable as a seed is. You can just crush it, even with your bare hands. But you can also put it into the earth and allow it to grow. Thank you so much. This was Klara Adalena, the Love for Life Academy. Bring your awesomeness to dating. Today on neediness and control versus vulnerability. On Wednesday, tomorrow, we will speak more. I don't know yet about what. I always follow the flow because that's what I believe in. But I do know it will be at 3:30. And last week, I don't know if you've seen that, but then we have been speaking to the amazing Laura, who has worked with me and actually found a beautiful, beautiful partner and found way more than that, found a whole new way of living through working with me. So if you're excited about that, do watch that interview. You can find it within the group, The Art of a Relationship You Love. The Art of a Relationship You Love. So head over there and find that interview, and excited to hear what it will create for you. Thank you so much. Have a vulnerable day. Aloha. Hey, Josepha, just see you before I leave. See you again later. Bye-bye.